What's the hardest thing about writing? Well, it's getting started. Maybe you're having a hard time coming up with a story idea, or you're stuck on where to take your story next. If you want a way into a story or a way through, I have 9 story starters to help you. This free PDF is full of story seeds and prompts to get you going. To download your 9 story starters, go to nancypanuccio.com/start. That's Nancy with an I, Panuccio with 2 C's, nancypanuccio.com/start. Even though your character is not in control of the circumstances, that doesn't mean he or she is passive. We never want things to just happen to your main character. We want them to take some role or stand in their survival. Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and writing coach. And each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let's begin. A powerful way to create tension in your story, the kind of tension that keeps readers on the edge of their seat, unable to put your story down, is to put your character in danger or the threat of danger. Now, by danger, I'm not just talking about physical danger. There are different shades of danger. There are acts of nature. There are accidents. There's emotional and psychological danger. It's anything that threatens your character's survival, whether it's physical survival or emotional survival. I've been watching the Netflix remake of Ripley based on Patricia Highsmith's 1955 crime novel, The Talented Mr. Ripley. The novel was also adapted into the movie starring Matt Damon as Tom Ripley, a con man who stops at nothing to avoid being caught. The Netflix version is far more tense and suspenseful because it puts the characters, including Tom Ripley, in danger. For those who are familiar with the 1999 movie, there's a boat scene in the middle of the sea where Tom Ripley bludgeons Dickie to death with one of the boat oars. This version, though, goes much further. Instead of moving quickly on from the murder, this brings us into the immediate aftermath while Ripley covers his tracks. It's easy to kill somebody, and of course we worry for Dickie, but then we see Tom trying to get rid of the body, and that's more tense. That's a lot harder. So immediately after the murder, while Dickie is lying dead in the boat, Tom now has to get rid of the body and sink the boat. But first, he has to move the boat. So he sets fire to the anchor rope because it's too tight and he needs to loosen it. And then he gets tripped by the rope and he's thrown overboard. So now he's in imminent danger of drowning. But to make the stakes even higher, the boat is spinning in circles around him and strikes him. Finally, after struggling underwater, he finally manages to pull the fuel line from the motor. After that, he must methodically sink the boat with small boulders in a nearby cove. So his prolonged struggle in carrying out the murder has many more obstacles for him to overcome than even Highsmith described in her novel. So it's Brilliant writing, brilliant filmmaking. Think of your own responses to story. When a character is in imminent danger or there's the threat of it, do you want to put the book down? If it's done right, absolutely not. Danger, whether it's physical or emotional, keeps readers in suspense and makes the story impossible to put down. So in this episode, we'll explore 2 types of danger that add irresistible tension to your story: physical and emotional. So let's start with physical danger. Physical danger can be categorized into a few buckets. A character's own recklessness can put him in danger, or it can be an act of nature, like a tsunami. It could be rough terrain a hiker embarks on. Danger could be at the hands of another character, the antagonist. The most compelling is danger the main character did not invite or knowingly instigate, or has any control over. Here's an extreme example, but it drives home the point about physical danger at the hands of the antagonist. This is from Gabriel Tallent's novel, My Absolute Darling. The protagonist is 14-year-old Julia, also known as Turtle. Now, Turtle's mom died when she was young. She doesn't even remember her. And so as the story opens, she's living with her survivalist father, Martin, in a cabin. Now, the mentality of her father is to stockpile weapons. He's a survivalist. Now, early in the novel, she challenges her dad for having filed her hunting knife too short, and she tells him it's not sharp enough anymore. Now, Martin doesn't like that she's questioning his judgment, so he tells her to jump to the rafter to show her something. Now, she's confused. She doesn't know why he wants her to jump up to the rafter. She doesn't trust him. She's scared. She knows his abusive pattern, and she reverses her complaint and says she knows the knife is sharp. But he still wants her to jump up and hang up on the rafter. And here's where the danger heats up. Her father overturns the table from beneath her, spilling the deck of cards, the plates, candles, beer bottles, leaving Turtle hanging from the rafter above the floor. Okay, so here she is hanging on, and the danger intensifies. Then he raises the knife and lays the blade up between her legs, stands scowling up at her. He says, "Just hang in there." Turtle is silent and unamused, looking down at him. He presses up with the knife and says, "Upsy daisy." Okay, so she's forced to do pull-ups to keep the knife from cutting her. Now, she's used to her father's abuse. This is a pattern, and she's strong mentally, but her physical strength can only take her so far. Her legs quiver. She begins to lower herself, but Martin says, "Up," abruptly and warningly, the knife resting against her crotch. She trembles, not able to fully raise herself back to the rafter, and so puts her face against its splintery side, holding her cheek there. She strains, thinking, "Please, please, please." So he forces her to do 13 pull-ups, and when she thinks she's got no strength left, he says, "You think the knife's sharp now, don't you? You believe it now, don't you?" So he's menacing. There's physical danger. It escalates. Now, when your character is in physical danger, this is no time to tell us how your character feels. She's operating on pure instinct, so you don't want any emotional shorthand. She was terrified. We don't need that. We just need to see the scene. So you want to focus more on sensory impressions. So think of the emotions that the danger provokes in your character. It may be terror, fear, it may be anger. But you don't want to just label those emotions. Focus on how the emotion feels like in your character's body. Her legs quiver. She trembles, not able to fully raise herself back to the rafter. She strains, thinking, please, please, please. You also want to resolve this danger at some point, so it will either be a rescue or some relief. Because the reader is straddling between fear for your character and hope. So you want to resolve the danger. In this scene, for example, Martin lets Turtle down from the rafters, but as she's lowering herself down, the knife grazes her thigh. Now, it's only a flesh wound, but the main danger is brought to a close, at least for now. So, physical danger caused by another character. The second kind of physical danger is natural danger. So this isn't the threat of another character, it comes from nature, which we all know can be unrelenting in its power. So that could be weather, it could be rough terrain. I'm thinking of Aaron Ralston's memoir, Between a Rock and a Hard Place, which was adapted into the movie 172 Hours, starring James Franco. He was an avid hiker and became trapped in a canyon with a fallen stone pinning his right hand and wrist against the wall. He was trapped there with no food, no water. So nature is a great way to put characters in danger. I'm also thinking of the movie The Impossible. This is a true story about surviving a tsunami. The tsunami itself is phenomenal and riveting as we watch Maria and her son cling to branches amid all these swirling waters. But it's also the aftermath of that disaster where the danger continues. In fact, it escalates. The tension comes from us worrying about these characters, particularly Maria, who's sustained life-threatening injuries and is in a hospital that's overcrowded, understaffed, and under-resourced. Other types of physical danger can be an accident. It could be a car accident or a plane crash. In John Irving's novel, The World According to Garp, there's a car accident. The car accident is told in flashback, but it's still immediate. Whenever Garp began imagining, he only saw the bloody Volvo. There were Duncan's screams, and outside he could hear Helen calling and someone else. He twisted himself from behind the steering wheel and kneeled on the driver's seat. He held Duncan's face in his hands, but the blood would not stop, and Garp couldn't see everything that was wrong. "It's okay," he whispered to Duncan. "Hush, you're going to be all right." But because of his tongue, there were no words, only a soft spray. Duncan kept screaming, and so did Helen, and someone else kept groaning, the way a dog dreams in its sleep. But what did Garp hear that frightened him so? What else? "It's all right, Duncan. Believe me," he whispered incomprehensibly. "You're going to be all right." He wiped the blood from the boy's throat with his hand. Nothing at the boy's throat was cut, he could see. He wiped the blood from the boy's temples and saw that they were not bashed in. He kicked open the driver's side door to be sure. The door light went on, and he could see that one of Duncan's eyes was darting. The eye was looking for help, but Garp could see that the eye could see. He wiped more blood with his hand, but he could not find Duncan's other eye. Okay, now notice how in this example everything slows down. Often writers will write about an accident that happens, but they'll flit by it really quickly in a sentence or two. You want to slow down. Even if it happens quickly, the character is experiencing it almost in slow motion because they're hyper aware. Okay, moving on to the second type of danger, emotional. This is deeper, more nuanced, and more complex, and often the harder thing to convey. It relies on the dynamics between characters. It's subtle. Emotional danger could threaten a relationship, or the character may stand to lose someone's trust, or respect, or affection. A marriage could be on the rocks. Someone's job could be on the line. So one person wants something the other isn't willing, ready, or able to give. So it's potential loss of some kind. There's emotional complications and conflict. So the character stands to lose. If there's nothing to lose, there's no emotional danger. There's no tension. I think of the scenes from Silence of the Lambs where Clarice Starling and Hannibal Lecter meet. They meet about 3 times throughout the film, and each time, because he's so unnervingly perceptive, he exposes something that she's ashamed of or afraid of. That's the real danger. Now, in the climax scene between Clarice and Buffalo Bill, the serial killer, there's tense physical danger, but in the scenes between her and Lecter, well, there's always the threat of physical harm, even though he's in a cage. The real danger is always psychological. He diminishes her because she's only a trainee in the FBI. She's not official. He mocks her as white trash. And in her final meeting with him, he forces her to confront a horrifying experience from her past that has to do with lambs screaming as they're being slaughtered and her inability to save them. So while she's physically safe in these encounters with Lecter, because he's locked up in a cell, she's never emotionally safe with him. But what if your story isn't a psychological thriller? What if it's a love story or a memoir? What if it's a story about family? How can you bring danger, however subtle, to each scene? You want to think about what each character in the scene wants from the other. Remember, emotional danger is derived from character dynamics. Their relationships are threatened. Here's an example from One Day by David Nichols. Now, in this example, the emotional danger comes from the dynamics between Emma and Dexter. They both want different things from one another. They're friends, but Emma still is holding a torch for Dexter, who has a quick turnaround with different girlfriends. He's a playboy. They're friends, but Emma's still in love with him, even though she suppresses her feelings to protect herself from getting hurt. In this excerpt, they're on vacation as friends in Greece, and they're in a restaurant, and she's decided to test him to see if he feels the same way she does. She suggests, since they're going to be spending 10 days together, they should share one secret that the other doesn't know each day of the vacation. Here's an excerpt from that scene in the restaurant. Emma took a sip and winced, then carefully rested her cheek on her hand in a way that she knew suggested a tipsy intimacy. A secret. Let's see. She tapped her chin with her finger. She could tell him that she had watched him in the shower, or that she knew about Tilly Killick at Christmas, the foot massage that had spun horribly out of control. She could tell him that in 1983 she had kissed Polly Dawson in her bedroom, but knew that she would never hear the end of it. Besides, she had known all evening what she intended to say. As the zither played like a prayer, she licked her lips and made her eyes sultry along with other tiny readjustments until she had constructed what she believed to be her best, most attractive face, the one she used in photographs. When we first met at university before we became, pals, Well, I had a bit of a crush on you. Not a bit of a crush, a massive crush, actually. For ages. Wrote dopey poems and everything. Poems? Really? I'm not proud of myself. I see. He folded his arms, put them on the edge of the table, and looked down. Well, I'm sorry, Em, but that doesn't count. Why not? Because you said it had to be something that I didn't know. He was grinning, and she was reminded once more of his almost limitless capacity to disappoint. So now that she's exposed this revelation, he gets the upper hand. Emotional danger. She's humiliated. She's still longing for him, but he's cavalier. She's trying to seduce him here to find out how he feels about her, and she's hoping he's attracted to her too. And his response is not what she expects. Emotional danger. Now, after the restaurant scene, Dexter convinces Emma to go skinny dipping in the sea as a way to repair the damage that happened in the restaurant. She resists, of course, but ultimately relents. So they're in the sea, they're skinny dipping, and this is what plays out. Dexter says, "So anyway, what I meant to say was sorry for what I said." When? Back in the restaurant, for being a bit glib or whatever. It's all right. I'm used to it. And also to say, I thought the same thing too, at the time. What I mean is, I liked you too. Romantically, I mean. I didn't write poems or anything, but I thought about you, think about you, you and me. I fancy you. Okay, so here she's getting the response she wanted to hear back at the restaurant, but she's not out of emotional danger yet. Here's how the scene continues. She says, "Really? Oh, really? Right. Oh, right." It's going to happen after all, she thought, right here and now, standing naked in the Aegean Sea. My problem is, and he sighed and smiled with one side of his mouth, well, I suppose I fancy pretty much everybody. I see, was all she could say. Anyone, really, just walking down the street. It's like you said, everyone's my type. It's a nightmare. Poor you, she said flatly. What I mean is that I don't think I am ready for, boyfriend, girlfriend. I think we'd want different things from a relationship. Because you're a gay man? I'm being serious here, Em. Are you? I can never tell. Are you angry with me? No, I don't care. I told you. It was a long, long time ago. However, under the water, his hands found her waist and held on. However, if you wanted a bit of fun, break the rules, play Scrabble, you know what I mean, a fling, just while we're away, no strings, no obligations, not a word to Ingrid, our little secret, because I'd be up for it, that's all. She made a noise in her throat somewhere between laughter and a growl. Up for it. He was grinning expectantly, like a salesman offering great deals on finance. Our little secret, to add to all the others, presumably. There was only one thing she could do, and, oblivious to her own nakedness, she bounced up out of the water and with all her weight pushed his head under the water and held it there. She began a slow count. 1, 2, 3. You arrogant, self-satisfied little. 4, 5, 6. And you stupid, stupid woman. Stupid for caring. Stupid for thinking he cared. 7, 8, 9. He's flailing now. Better let him up, I suppose, and make a joke. Make a joke out of it. 10. And she took her hands from the top of his head and let him bounce up. He was laughing, shaking the water from his hair and eyes, and she laughed too, a rigid ha ha ha. I take it that's a no then, he said eventually, pinching the seawater from his nose. Okay, again, notice that the emotional danger resolves. The author doesn't leave her hanging there. He gives the power back to her. The emotional danger comes from her longing for him. And once their love is consummated, there's no more story. There's no emotional danger. Their love is consummated towards the end of the novel, but it's short-lived. Tragedy strikes, and the rest of the novel deals with the aftermath. Okay, let's recap. Putting your characters in some kind of danger creates the kind of tension that keeps readers glued to the page. The tension comes from the reader feeling fear for your character's physical safety or concern for their emotional well-being. That's what keeps readers in suspense, hovering between fear and hope that the character will ultimately be okay. Whichever form of danger you use, it should cause the reader to feel concern, worry, maybe even alarm for your character. We talked about two types of danger you can bring to your story, physical and emotional. Physical can be, number one, at the hands of the antagonist, number two, nature, or number three, accidents, car crashes, fires, plane crashes. The second danger we explored is emotional danger. This is where what's at stake is love or attraction, trust, confidence, or emotional safety. It's when your character's present or future relationships are in jeopardy. Okay, here are 5 things to keep in mind when putting your characters into any kind of danger. Number 1, slow down. Probe the moment. Even something as rapid as a plane crash or a car accident slows down in the character's experience. We're getting the danger filtered through your main character's viewpoint because he or she is noticing everything. When we're in physical danger, let's say a car accident, or at the hands of another person, we're hyper-focused, hyper-vigilant. Everything is hyper-real. So number 1, slow down. Number 2, use sensory images to convey the physical danger. Don't use emotional shortcuts like he was terrified. You want to focus on the character's physical sensations. Make the scene more tactile. Number 3, emotional danger is more subtle. It derives from the dynamics between the characters. The characters want conflicting things. Number 4, even though your character is not in control of the circumstances, that doesn't mean he or she is passive. We never want things to just happen to your main character. We want them to take some role or stand in their survival. Turtle does pull-ups to escape her father's knife. Emma tells Dexter her crush was a long time ago and she doesn't have those feelings anymore. She tells him she's cured. Now, we know she's not, but she doesn't just wallow. When he offers her a casual sexual fling, she plunges him underwater. She takes her power back. And number 5, consequences. You don't want danger just for the sake of danger. It must lead to consequences, plot consequences. For example, in One Day, M gives up on longing for Dex. That's the turning point. The next time we meet her, she's on a date with Ian, who she winds up having a long-term relationship with. So the scenes in Greece, where her emotional well-being is at stake and is threatened, marks a turning point. You want to bring some degree of danger to your scenes. It doesn't need to be anything grand or intense like a plane crash. The danger in one day is subtle, so it can be subtle.
So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And if you know any writers who need some support in their writing, please share this episode or the Writer Unleashed podcast in general. And if you love what you're listening to, subscribe on your favorite listening platform and please leave me a review. Reading how this podcast impacts your writing truly lights me up and helps me create topics for the show. Till next time, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.